Story 1. I would definitely be searching for my favorite childhood toy that mysteriously disappeared one day. It was this plush monkey named Bananas, and we were inseparable until one day he vanished into thin air. I have always wondered where he ended up. Story 2. My Nana made me a quilt when I turned 18. Took her ages. We went to the fabric store to pick out patterns and colors, and it was beautiful. We went to a laundromat to wash it along with all my baby's clothes. We lived right around the corner. My son pooped, so I thought I'd run him home and be back in 10 minutes. When I got back, 10 minutes later, my quilt was gone, nowhere to be found. I contacted the number for the place multiple times, but nobody ever found it. I still cry about it and never told her. That's what I'd look for first. Story 3, my dad's guitar, which he gifted to me as a child, was stolen from a storage unit a few years after he passed away in 2018. I seriously lose sleep over it to this day. I didn't want it to be put in that unsecure storage unit, but it was out of my control since I was a teenager. It's a long story, but I regularly get reminded of it and have to force myself not to think about it, or I get really upset and start to spiral. Story 4. I had a hard drive that had a bunch of memories and videos on it from age 16 to around 22. My dad's computer guy at the time told me to store everything on there because it would always be safe. Well, it stopped working one day, so I sent it to him to get fixed. Instead of fixing it, he replaced it and destroyed the original one. I have never forgiven him for this. I would have rather held onto the broken hard drive because now, with technology advancements, I am sure someone could have extracted all those files. I still prank call him periodically and list his number on Craigslist for expensive free items so people blow up his phone with unnecessary calls. I dislike him so much. I am very upset with you, Doug. Story 5. Mom's silver necklace, which I gave to someone I thought I was close to when I was a teenager, was lost. I never saw the person or the necklace again. Story 6. My orange stuffed rabbit named Sherbert that my grandfather gave me when I was born was accidentally left behind at a hotel when I was about 7 years old. Story 7. The little spirit horse figurine that I lost on a road trip with my family ages ago. I loved that horse figure so much and never wanted to lose it. We stopped at a rest stop and I put it down to wash my hands and completely forgot it on the sink there. By the time I realized, we had already pulled out of the rest stop, and I knew my dad would refuse to go back for a toy. So I just sat there and cried for the next hour or so. Every once in a while, I wonder what happened to that toy. Story 8. There is a cat who I still miss and love. He disappeared 4 years ago. He is lost, and I still yearn for my Kevin kitty. Story 9. My copy of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, signed by Gary Gigax, and my monster manual signed by Trampier and Gigax. My parents had a small fire at their house, and the restoration company told them that my books were ruined, which would have been impossible due to where they were stored during the fire. I think someone at the restoration company decided to keep my collection for themselves. Story 10. A skeleton key that my kindergarten friend gave me to remember her by on the last day of school that year. I never saw her again, and a 6-year-old me didn't do a great job of keeping track of important things back then. Story 11. My original Game Boy with the yellow case. My brothers kept taking the gray ones, saying it was actually theirs. So for Christmas, I got my own with a bright yellow case. I loved it so much as it was officially, provably mine, unlike pretty much everything else we owned. It disappeared at some point, probably stolen and hidden. Dumb, but I'd like it back. Story 12. My horrible yellow floral shorts. One day they just disappeared. It has always been a great mystery. Story 13. I left a portfolio filled with drawings at a subway station in New York City back in 2015. I would have liked to know what happened to them. Story 14. I don't know if theft counts, but someone stole my backpack that contained the diary I kept through junior high and early high school. I'm sure it's cringe central, but it also includes meeting the guy I'd eventually marry. I'd love to have it back. Story 15, my Disney pins. I used to have a ton of those collectible Disney pins that you can trade at the park. I had a whole book. I loved my pins. And somewhere along the line, when I was living with roommates, it went missing. I have no clue where it went. I don't remember doing anything with them. The last thing I remember was showing them off to said roommates. and then I got a chance to go to Disneyland. Couldn't find them. I am convinced to this day one of the roommates took them and sold them. I can't prove it, but it's not like these were loose pins. It was a good-sized pin trading bag with Nightmare Before Christmas decor. There was a few $100s into that bag, not to mention the memories and personal value. And I will remain angry about it until I die. Story 16. A family heirloom I lost when I was homeless in 2017. My uncle gave me a Bible that was owned by my original grandmother before she took her own life in the 70s. I never met the woman, and my mom barely remembers her either. It had her name and handwriting in it. I feel like garbage that I lost it during that time. Story 17. I was going to come in here and say, my virginity. It was so much fun to lose it the first time. I'd like to lose it again. Then I started reading the replies. My dog, my cat, my beloved pet, my best friend from childhood who died before age 12, my mom, whom I never told I loved her in her last months. So yeah, those kind of made me melancholy. Then I read the one from Sweet Fluffy Princes about their nose. Now I am smiling again. Story 18. My little black Texaco micro machine race car from when I was very young. And guess what? I got one a few weeks ago off of eBay, and my soul is warm now. Story 19. There is a picture of me with all my friends when I was in 9th grade. They were all in that goth stage, dressed in all black with spiky hair and crazy makeup. And then there was me. Most never grew out of it. Dead in the middle. I was wearing a light orange tank top and white ruffle skirt with a pink ribbon around my hips and bright blonde hair. I talk about this photo often and I wish I still had a copy. Story 20. Wife's wedding ring. She passed a few weeks ago on March 18th at the ripe old age of 44. I drew up the design for the ring, and a diamond seller in San Francisco made it for us. Not the flashiest of diamonds, but I paid for it myself. Lost or perhaps stolen around 6 years ago when a girl we knew and her boyfriend, who was known for using marijuana, watched the house for us. No good deed. If lost, that's what I'd be looking for. Story 21. A really good friend bought me a Zippo for my birthday. I went to university and met this girl. We went out drinking together all the time. I paid for tons of stuff for her because I just really liked her. 3+ years later, with her first paycheck, she buys me a Zippo. We drifted apart, but I treasured it. Years later, I got married and went on holiday. Somehow, said lighter didn't make it back. I suspect my wife left it there. I was super sad about it. I'd love to have it back. Story 22. My grandmother had a very old, bent caldera that she cooked all of our meals in from the time I was old enough to not see over the table. She made our rice, our sopas, and all of the delicious scents and flavors that colored the best parts of my childhood. Her house was neat and clean. She loved not so much with her words, we spoke 2 different languages, but with her food. Her food was good. When she passed away, the ladies at the church came and helped. They disposed of quite a lot. They were honestly trying to help, but the pot was thrown out. I want it. I still want it. I don't want a new one. I want that pot. I would keep it on my mantle, filled with fresh-picked flowers and her favorite candy. Story 23:32-year-old masculine male, but I kept my favorite teddy until I was 22. I had a rough upbringing, and it was really special. I was living in this messed up crack house for low rent, and it was gone when I went to collect my stuff. I wanted to give that to my first son so badly. Story 24. Dog-shaped earrings, which were not lost but most likely stolen by my brother or his friends. I loved those earrings. I had them since I was a child, and they disappeared when I was 15. I still miss them. Story 25. My childhood photo album was in a storage place while we moved to a different house. I found out that my mom didn't pay the monthly payments, and the stuff was to be thrown away. I didn't know until my mom asked me if there was something in the storage I wanted to keep. Only then it was too late. I haven't forgiven her since. My grandma made this for me, and it was the only thing left to remember her by. Story 26. My dad, I lost him when I was 15. It's been hard, and I can't remember what his voice sounded like anymore. Story 27. Probably my confidence and self-worth. Didn't exactly lose it. It was more stripped away slowly over a couple of years. Thank goodness for great friends who look out for you. Story 28. Before I went backpacking for the first time in 2003, my dad scratched my initials into a Canadian quarter as a reminder of home and family. That quarter was my good luck charm throughout that whole trip, and I kept it in my wallet for the next 15 years until I somehow lost my wallet at a bar in Vancouver. Dad passed away last year, and I'd love to get that quarter back. Hey Canadians reading this, could you check your pockets for a quarter with some scratched-in initials? Story 29. My mother, I lost her to cancer when I was 15. Hopefully, the box of things I've ever lost isn't too big, so she's easy to find. Story 30. Each child in my dad's family was gifted a gold locket when they were children, with pictures of them as babies. My dad's locket was kept in his baby book until he died at 40, when I was 10. The locket was then gifted to me, a 10-year-old, and I wore it every day. When I was 12, my grandfather died, and I lost the locket on the day of his funeral in the churchyard. I would look for the locket first. Story 31. Everything. That phone, that cable, that controller, that piece of homework. Everything is useful in there. Everything. Story 32. A tape my dad had in the car in the early 90s/late 80s. I think it was called Epic Love Songs, and I'd love to be able to get the playlist and time travel for a bit. Story 33:3 journals I kept in childhood. The first one was a big blue notebook, plain pages, that I kept when I was around 6 to 9. The second was a small leopard print notebook that I kept when I was 10 to 13. The third was a bunch of loose leaf pages that I wrote in the form of letters and hid in a small jewelry box drawer, again when I was around 12 to 13. Inexplicably, they all went missing at one point or another. I would go to write in them again, and because I wrote fairly sporadically, it could be weeks between entries. I'd go to where I left them and they would be gone. I was meticulous about where I put things as a child, obsessive-compulsive disorder since I was 7, and I know I did not misplace them myself. I looked everywhere, but they were totally gone. With hindsight, I can only assume one or both of my parents hid them or disposed of them. Considering my other journals never went astray, I assume that each of these 3 journals contained information they didn't want me remembering. Considering there is a lot of nasty stuff I suspect about my childhood, this would not be surprising, nor would it be out of character for my mother especially. I would absolutely love to see what I wrote in them. Story 34. My patience. I swear I will start throwing things the next time someone sits next to me at a restaurant bar and takes a speakerphone call. Story 35. Favorite knife I left on top of my truck at a fishing hole back in '86, the day before I went on vacation. Drove off and never saw it again. Best knife I ever had. Story 36. My unopened copy of Multiple Use Labor Element for Atari 8-bit. We joke in the house. If we lost something, it's playing Multiple Use Labor Element. Story 37. My childhood teddy bear. I just could not find him around the house one day, and I never found out what happened to him. Story 38. I had a custom aerodynamic bicycle frame made by Bill Boston. I never rode it because it was too large. I gave it back to him to fix it. He ended up in jail, I heard, for drug offenses. I never saw the frame again. Story 39. I lost my mom's only cross necklace when I was a teen. She got it when she was baptized. I'm not Christian, but she was royally angry, and I got a good punishment. Story 40. My 22-year-old son, whom I lost in 2022, and my partner, whom I lost 6 weeks ago. But not to bring the place down, I will also look for everything I have ever lost while drunk. Laugh out loud. Story 41. A gold ring from my grandma, who passed away, was given to me. It was too big, and I foolishly wore it out one night. I lost it in the snow at an apartment complex and never found it. Story 42. Charm bracelet my dad gave me. I was a teen when he gave it to me and soon after lost it. I'm 30 now, and I still wonder where it is all the time. Story 43. Burgundy Mont Blanc ballpoint pen. I lost it in the 90s and it still really bothers me. I took such good care of it and it just disappeared. Story 44. I had this wooden pull dog toy when I was about 5. According to my parents' recollection, it went everywhere with me. It was on wheels, and the legs rotated when it was pulled by the string following behind me. From memory, I was heartbroken when I lost it. This was 39 years ago. I'd like to have that one back.